This is the Women's Memorial in Washington, D.C., a storehouse of memorabilia reflecting the roles women have played over the years in support of and part of America's military forces. On this edition of Recon, we'll take a look back on those years and examine how the accomplishments of women in the past are benefiting those serving today. From the start of the Revolutionary War in 1775 up through the early 1900s, women volunteers were the support backbone that helped keep armies functioning. They prepared food, cleaned clothes, and cared for the wounded. After the Spanish-American War, the nation recognized the need for an ongoing presence of nurses. In 1901, the Army established its Nurse Corps. The Navy followed 7 years later. World War I. More than 23,000 Army and Navy nurses served in hospitals stateside and, for the first time, overseas. The services also saw the need for added help, enlisting more than 12,000 women to fill stateside positions. But, though they wore U.S. military uniforms, the women didn't share in all the rights and benefits men received. At war's end, they were discharged from service.
Calling all women. Calling all women.
World War II. Women again respond to a call for help.
Curiosity. There was this big Marine Corps sign that said, "Free a man to fight." Well, that intrigued me. So I went in to see what this "free a man to fight" was for. And then I went back, good recruiter, I went back to the office and said, "Guess what? I just joined the Marine Corps."
It wasn't a hard decision, but it was the first time the decision had been offered to us. You know, in my time, little girls didn't grow up, "Oh, I want to be in the Navy" or something, you know.
More than 400,000 women chose to serve. Although many took on what were then considered appropriate jobs, such as cooks, clerks, and storekeepers, others entered uncharted territory, like those who became Women Air Force Service Pilots, more commonly known as a WASP. Although they weren't officially members of the armed forces, they were the first women trained to fly American military aircraft and provided critical support for the war effort, ferrying supplies and equipment stateside and freeing up male pilots for duty overseas. There were also many individual women whose skills made them exceptions to the day's rules. Lorraine Dieterle's experience as a photographer earned her an instructor position with the Coast Guard.
The ironic part of it was that I couldn't have a woman in any of my classes. It was considered, quote-unquote, a man's job.
Her trainees were sent overseas to document the war effort, and Lorraine saw much of their work.
All of the film that came back, I saw the blood, I saw the carnage, I saw the heads blown off, I saw all this, and I had to censor, more or less, so that the American public could not see the dead bodies in the sand holding their rifles. And many times when I developed the film, I would cry and I prayed for the families, the mothers and the wives.
Regardless of the need, many Americans were against women serving.
You know, people were much more conservative then, and it was a new idea. A new idea. And so there was, you know, some rather mean things said about the early women that served.
And some of those women found themselves in harm's way. In one example, 83 nurses serving in the Pacific were captured by the Japanese in the early days of the war and held prisoner for 3 years. By the end of the war, women served in all but a few non-combatant jobs, in every service branch, and assigned to every combat theater. Then, in August 1945, VJ Day.
Oh my God, I never saw anything like it. Everybody was there and everyone was joyous beyond belief.
Soon, all but a few women were discharged from service, but so many were forever changed.
You come out grown up. You went in kind of a kid, but you come out grown up, just like the men that go in combat.
On June 12, 1948, President Harry Truman signed the Women's Armed Services Integration Act, giving women permanent military status in the regular forces. However, the law did limit the number of women that could serve to 2% for each branch. The next 2 decades were difficult for military women as the armed forces struggled first with the integration of women and racial desegregation, and later the clash between traditional views of women's roles and a social movement for equality. One of the most important actions affecting military women during those years happened in 1967, when Congress voted to remove the 2% ceiling on the number of women who could serve and allow promotions to higher ranks, including general and admiral. Though changes didn't happen overnight, each woman's achievement was a stepping stone. Brigadier General Wilma Vaught served with the Air Force from 1957 through 1985. She was the first to reach that rank in the comptroller career field and is one of the most decorated military women in U.S. history.
It was never uncomfortable to me to be the first. But what it was certainly a challenge, because I never wanted to fail in whatever job or task it was. And it was very prevalent in that time that if some woman failed, the next thing you heard was, well, we just can't have women work there. You know, we had so-and-so, and it just didn't work out. So there was always that tremendous challenge to succeed.
The long and winding road.
In the 70s, 2 important changes took place: the decision to establish the all-volunteer military and the proposed Equal Rights Amendment to the Constitution. Both focused attention on the equality of women in the armed forces, and barriers to integrate women in the military began to fall. One example, a Navy test launched by Chief of Naval Operations Admiral Elmo Zumwalt aboard the hospital ship USS Sanctuary in 1972.
My view is that if there are women who want to go to sea and undergo the hardships of going to sea and to serve their country in that capacity, then we can find a way to make it possible for them to do so.
Although mostly positive, reactions varied.
There's quite a few that don't like it, and there's quite a few that do, you know, and quite a few, you know, might as well let it try it out.
There's just so many guys around, and they're looking at you to see if you can do the job.
You can't tell a woman to work the way you can tell a man to, because actually they can't work as hard as a man.
I've got 2 or 3 in my divisions that so far have outworked any man that I have in my division.
Options for women expanded rapidly as opportunities like pilot training and admission to the service academies became available. And that expansion continued throughout the next decade. Then, in January 1991, more than 33,000 women deployed to Southwest Asia for Operations Desert Shield and Desert Storm. And for the first time, Americans saw women at war, working side by side with men, many in leadership roles. Also, for the first time, Americans seemed ready to accept the new roles military women had achieved. But Desert Storm brought home the related risks. 13 servicewomen were killed, and 2 were prisoners of war. Major Rhonda Cornum was captured when the helicopter she was in was shot down. 3 of the crew were killed in the crash. 5, including Cornum, were taken prisoner. Despite a broken arm, a bullet wound, and sexual assault, Cornum, now a colonel, persevered.
I think for myself it was training in terms of having been exposed to many of the things that I might face, and it's also a history of success. When you've been successful at whether it's college or sports or graduate school or medical school or whatever, then you have the expectation of yourself that you're going to be successful and you'll make it through any kind of bad experience, and I had absolute confidence that I would be successful.
Colonel Cornum says her thoughts during captivity were most often about her family.
Because for the person who is a prisoner, you're either okay or you're not, and you know, and your family has to wonder, and I think that would be harder. And talking to my husband when I got back, that was the hardest thing he ever did, was having to call our daughter and say, we don't know where Mother is, she might not come back.
Operations Desert Shield and Storm brought home to the American public new and difficult realities. Military women will, more and more, be among the prisoners, the wounded, and the dead. When Recon continues, a look at where and how women are serving in the 21st century. The challenges for military women in the 21st century are many, and job restrictions few. Today, only jobs related to direct combat and those aboard Navy submarines remain closed to women. Still, in places like Iraq and Afghanistan, women are finding themselves in environments that are dangerous, simply because there are no real front lines. 23-year-old senior airman Stacy Hoffman is on her first tour in Iraq. She and her military police colleagues are responsible for security of the International Zone, formerly called the Green Zone, in Baghdad. It's the heavily guarded area where U.S. occupation authorities live and work.
How about that high five?
And every day presents possible dangers.
We get mortar attacks a lot, rocket attacks, E-beds, suicide bombers, everything. Pretty close sometimes.
Another challenge these women face on a regular basis has to do with men. Not their fellow service members, but many of the Iraqi men they interact with who aren't used to women in authority positions.
I try to keep a low tone in dealing with them, try not to look them in their face, try to keep with the culture so that it's not offensive, but at the same time they still need to know that we have a job to do and we're going to do the job and it doesn't change.
But Sergeant Bergdorf is used to a male-dominated work environment. When she's not serving with the Air Force Reserves, her uniform is still that of a police officer back home in Kansas City.
Everybody has to establish themselves, but women do have to, I think, go a little above and beyond to make sure that the men are confident in our abilities. We have shooting situations at home. We get into areas where bullets are flying. That's a lot of life.
The possibility of attack is something all military people serving in Iraq must face each day. But for some, that possibility becomes a reality. In March 2005, Sergeant Leanne Hester was part of a military police guard for a supply convoy when it was ambushed by insurgents using assault rifles and rocket-propelled grenades. The 23-year-old Army reservist led her security team into a flanking position where they returned fire. 3 of the enemy were killed by shots fired from Hester's M4 rifle. The actions of Sergeant Hester and other squad members saved many soldiers' lives. 3 months after the attack, Sergeant Hester became the first woman to receive the Silver Star since World War II. 6 other soldiers with Hester's unit also earned awards for defeating the ambush, including Specialist Ashley Pullen, who was awarded the Bronze Star. Military women have been flying fighter aircraft since 1993, but there is still plenty of territory yet uncharted by female pilots. Captain Nicole Malachowski will be the first to venture onto new turf in 2006 as the first female member of the Air Force Thunderbirds aerial demonstration team.
The idea of joining the Thunderbirds actually didn't really pop into my head until my husband actually brought it up. And I looked at him, I said, "Do you really think that's something I can do?" And he said, "I absolutely believe that's something you can do."
Captain Malachowski has been flying fighters for 7 years.
The biggest honor for me really was being able to fly over the Iraqi territory on the 30th of January, that really historic election day. It's that kind of stuff that makes you really proud to be a part of the Air Force team, the American team.
And she's looking forward to the new challenges and pressures that come with being a Thunderbird.
It takes a lot of different people with different backgrounds to make up a great team, and it's really all about getting the mission done.
2 women who have achieved even greater heights are retired Air Force Colonel Eileen Collins and Navy Captain Wendy Lawrence. In 1995, as a lieutenant colonel, Collins became the first woman to pilot the space shuttle.
3 engines up and burning.
4 years later, she became the first to command a mission.
And liftoff of Space Shuttle Discovery, beginning America's new journey to the moon, Mars, and beyond.
In 2005, both faced the challenge of being part of NASA's first mission after the Columbia tragedy. Colonel Collins as mission commander and Captain Lawrence as one of the mission specialists.
National Space Station.
Both astronauts cite the opportunities military service presented as reasons for where they are today.
The military is a great place to be. You get a lot of responsibility and you get a lot of support, and And I liked the fact that, you know, what I did in the Air Force was I really felt like I was making an impact.
And opportunities will come your way. You need to have your eyes open, you need to be looking for them, and when they come your way, you need to be ready to take advantage of them. When you take advantage of that opportunity and walk through that door, make sure you walk through that door in such a way that you leave it open for the folks behind you.
Today, women are integrated into nearly every facet of military operations, and they're also paying the added price that goes with that progress. As of the end of October, nearly 50 of the more than 2,000 Americans killed during Operations Iraqi Freedom and Enduring Freedom have been women. Although a few were accidental deaths, most were the result of enemy attacks. None of these women served in direct combat jobs, which are still closed to women. Yet, in wars where there are no real front lines, dangers face everyone in uniform, and that's brought the debate of women in combat to the forefront once again. Some may ask, are women ready and able to take on that new role? Should they be given the choice? Several of the women we spoke with for this program gave us their thoughts.
I think that the women need to know that if they choose to challenge that role, that it's a great thing, but they need to be able to stand up and do the job.
If you can handle it, you can handle it, but I know a lot of people can't. A lot of women can't. They throw the I'm a woman card and, you know, let me go home. But there's people out there, there's women out there that stick to it, that stay strong.
A loss is a loss, whether it's a woman or a man. And if there's women that want to step up to the plate and be over here and be a part of it and defend their country, then I think they should have every opportunity to do just that.
Women who join the military know the risks and are insulted if people try to prevent them from taking risk, because the risk is everywhere, as demonstrated by the Twin Towers. The risk is everywhere, and so if people sign up to defend the nation and defend the Constitution, then don't try to limit their ability to do that.
And if they are in harm's way because of the career pathway they have chosen, well, I don't feel that the life of a woman is any more valuable than the life of a son or a husband. They are both of value to us as family and to us as a nation.
Long overdue recognition of service and sacrifice. Up next on Recon. For so many years, the contributions and achievements of military women went, for the most part, unrecognized. There certainly wasn't a single location you could go to learn about their history. That changed in October 1997 with the dedication of a memorial here at the historic gateway to Arlington National Cemetery. More than 30,000 came to celebrate the dedication of the Women in Military Service for America Memorial.
This is the largest gathering ever of servicewomen and veterans whose service spans the time from World War I to the present.
And we kept saying, we can't believe that we're doing this. After all these years now, we're going back to Washington, and we're marching in like conquering heroes, you know, and it was grand.
I went to the dedication memorial and seeing all those people who, particularly like the World War II veterans, you know, thousands and thousands of them, who really hadn't been recognized, hadn't gotten VA benefits when they got out, hadn't been offered the opportunity to stay in, had not been celebrated as being an important part of our military history, were getting recognized.
It was an event tailored for all the military women in the audience.
I wanted every woman to feel that she was represented somewhere in some way.
World War I veteran Frida Hardin, then 101 years old, put the changes that have taken place over the years in perspective for everyone.
When I served in the Navy, women were not even allowed to vote.
For the veterans in the audience, the day had special significance. as their service and sacrifices were finally recognized.
America knows what you do and what you have done. Maybe it hasn't always been recognized in the past as it should have been. But today, we proclaim loudly and clearly, we recognize it, we're grateful for it, we say God bless you, and we will always thank you for helping to make our country what it is.
And the tears flowed. Of course, we were so happy that we finally have our memorial.
It was a good feeling. Almost as good as VJ Day.
Brigadier General Vaught is the driving force that made this memorial possible, a goal achieved only after 10 years of hard work and a lot of support.
The easiest part of getting the memorial was getting people to say, yes, let's do it. The difficult part was getting the money to do it. As we decided we needed to get a site, that this would help us in our fundraising efforts, I thought this is going to be extremely difficult to find a place that's on the tourist path, because I didn't want to do something that no one ever visited.
That's when General Vaught happened upon this location.
And what could be more relevant than to honor anyone, any military person, at the Gateway to Arlington National Cemetery.
The buildings for the original site were dedicated in 1932 as a ceremonial entrance to Arlington Cemetery. General Vaught decided it was the perfect site for her purpose.
It's on the tourist path. 4.5 million people visit Arlington National Cemetery a year, and we had the opportunity to build, and it turned out, I think, very well.
Today, the memorial is home to a variety of displays depicting the history of women's service to our country.
Not a week goes by, hardly, that we still yet don't discover new things that women did. Up here is Senator Margaret Chase Smith with Harry Truman, and that's when he signed the legislation, the Women's Armed Services Integration Act, which gave women the opportunity to be in the service other than in wartime. There were many people that thought this was going to be a very dark, dismal structure being built into the hill the way it is, but with the skylight it didn't turn out that way at all. So I think we were very fortunate. I like to go up on the upper terrace because this memorial is at the crossroads of American history. With the cemetery there behind us, President Kennedy's grave, Arlington House, which was the Lee Custis mansion, that's our yesterday. And then you turn and you look down Memorial Drive toward the Lincoln Memorial, and there is our nation's capital, which is our future.
And in the future, thousands of visitors will stroll along this terrace and pause to see another highlight of the Women's Memorial, etched in these glass tablets.
The quotations are either written by women who served or about women who served. And one of the beautiful things, and we knew this ahead of time, was that when the sun is just right, they reflect on the marble down below.
Providing a place where people can learn the important role women have played in the history of our military is the main purpose of the memorial. But that history grows with each passing day. That's where the memorial's registry comes in. It offers all women who serve a chance to make sure their service is also remembered.
I think it's important to show that you are a part of the history of our country, and it's important enough that you want to be included in this memorial, that your picture is here, that your story is here, that you're a part of this long panorama of history.
Here we are.
Military women can sign up for the registry at the memorial or online, but that information can only be accessed while visiting the memorial, and private information is kept secure.
And it's only through here, through the registry, it's information about your military service, what year you served from 1 to 1 and the places, whatever information you provide to us. Any personal information is very safeguarded at the foundation.
Today, there are many who believe drawing attention to the accomplishments of military women detracts from the idea that equality has already been achieved in the U.S. military. General Vaught was aware of those sentiments when she first envisioned this memorial.
When I started working on this, I went through a 3-month period when I thought, are we doing the right thing to build a memorial for women? We have worked so hard to be integrated, and we have made such progress at that, of being accepted by everybody as full-fledged soldiers, airmen, Marines, sailors. But then I concluded that this was something that certainly the women who had served in Korea and World War II needed. And that all of us need to know better the history of our service. And I concluded that it was the right thing to do. If I thought for 1 minute that we had gained everything there is to be gained in being women members of the military, then perhaps there isn't a need. But as I look at what happens in the world today, there is still much to be done.
General Vaught often uses the words of World War II veteran Anne Brim to describe the mission of the Women's Memorial. Words that also express so well what countless military women have felt through the years.
Let the generations know that women in uniform also guaranteed their freedom.
That our resolve was just as great as the brave men who stood among us.
And with victory our hearts were just as full, beat just as fast.
That the tears fell just as hard for those we left behind.
I'm Air Force Sergeant Daniela Marcus. This has been Recon.